So with all this conquering going on by the Europeans, you're obviously going to have new societies come about and win because this is 100% new. There's nothing that was original on either side because the Spanish government, that's where we're going to spend most of our time here because it is kind of the biggest part. We will look at Portugal a little bit and we will look at North America a little bit, but we got to look at the Spanish stuff first. So you're going to see new multicultural societies. You're going to see a mixture of European, Native American, African ancestry, but the Europeans are still dominant. Since there are so few European women coming over, almost all the people coming over are males. The males are going to enter into new relationships with Native women and Native Africans, and Africans that come over in slavery. And what you're going to see is this mixed race, multicultural society being developed. The system, which I'll put up here for you in a second, is completely based on race. It's completely based on skin color. And essentially, the whiter your skin color, the more, the higher you are on the structure. It is definitely patriarchal in nature. The more European a woman was, the more freedom that they would have. Women in Peru held on to European traditions more than what you're going to see in New Spain or Mexico. The urban saw more European couples, where the more rural you got, the more intermarriage between a man and a native woman or an African woman as a whole. Privileged women don't work very much, if at all. Where lower class women are forced to join the workforce. Why? Because they just flat out need more money. As a whole, what you're going to see, the bottom bullet point down there is the English and the French do have more women in them, and it's a formation of just different societies where, like Canada, for instance, is going to see the most intermingling. English settlers work to keep boundaries in place between different groups. They're going to interact and trade cultural items, but there's way less social relationships. That is not true in Spain and Portugal. You have new multicultural societies in South and Latin America, very patriarchal, and they're basically all based around skin color. So let's look at those a little bit more. So these multicultural, it is called the there we go, Casta system. It basically is going to start because of the Encomienda system, where you're going to see more migrating over than women, and therefore relationships are going to start to develop between the men that were coming over and the women that are here. So the relationships are a must. So here's your order. Peninsulares are people, so the root word of that is peninsula. So you're coming over from the Iberian Peninsula. So you're either from Portugal or Spain, and that's where you were born. Next is Creoles. You are children of children of migrants born from America. So in other words, both parents are from Spain originally. Then you are born in the New World. You're a Creole. Then you start to see mixtures. The mestizos and the mulattoes and the zambos. Okay, and I'll let you read what you see there. And the slaves on the bottom. It's all based on skin color. The whiter your skin color is, the higher up you are on the structure. Native was seen, mixture, so Spanish and Native was seen as kind of the highest level, and African was below that. In reality, guys, it's very much like the caste system. It's going to get very much more complex with time. It's going to be very economic. It's going to be completely based on race in this case, where it's going to be based on job in the caste system. But the whole thing, it's based on what your skin color look like. So let's look at this in a little more detail. So first of all, you can see the population change there. Okay. Now, so this is the Casa system in Brazil. Social stratification based on, that's a fancy word that means race. And you can just see here there's 4, 8, 12, 16 different styles. And I simplified it greatly with, let me go back a slide here. This is simplified. You're going to see breakdowns all over the place here in terms of it being into different social structures. So this, for example, is a mestizo. Okay. Remembering, mestizo is a Spanish person and a native parent, and the other one is native. So, of course, it's a guy with a woman who is a native. You go down, mulatto, white with an African. Mulatto again, mestizo and an Indian. I mean, you're just different, and now look at the pictures. You can stop and look at the different pictures. Let me delete this so you can see it better. As a whole, this caste system is the social structure of the New World. And this is where race is really going to start to become a factor in things. Remember, we've talked about before how for a long time slavery was not a race-based thing. This is where that is going to start to change. One of the reasons it starts to change is the precious metals that are available. Silver, 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 silver for Spain. They want the silver. It is huge quantities in northern Mexico and also Bolivia, and people love it in China. This precious metal is why the Europeans are in. They're destroying the Aztecs and the Incas. They melt down everything they had. They don't care about the culture. They don't care about anything. They want the silver. Originally, the labor was provided by the indigenous, and many volunteered to go there and communities because they didn't really have anything else. But over time, that's not going to work, partially due to the fact that they're dying. Smallpox. And the Mida system comes about, which require each native village to send 1/7 of its population to work for 4 months. They do receive payment, but really low wages and brutal working conditions, such as hauling baskets, working with mercury, hauling silver up mine shafts. And even though this provides about 10% of the labor and the rest of it is volunteered, it was deadly and ripped native villages apart, and males are leaving by leaps and bounds, which enforces the caste system more. The Spanish government is going to take 20%, 1/5 of it, known as the quinto, and that's theirs. Now let's go to agriculture a little bit. I forgot to tell about this part. The Manila galleons, remember we talked about them who are trading between the Philippines and then with Mexico in the Pacific Ocean? That is what you see here. That's how the Spanish are getting all of that silver over to China, is with the Manila galleons. Okay, they're bringing it all over for the silk and the porcelain, and Spain is going to grow massive in the New World because of it. They're going to become the power in the New World because of the huge army and the bureaucracy that comes with it. So now let's go to agriculture. The hacienda system is going to provide food, and the labor is provided through that encomienda system. So wheat, grapes, pork, beef. The hacienda is like an estate-like farm. Okay, the encomienda system is providing the labor for it. Reminder that the encomienda system is basically the fact that the conquistadors are awarded, I use that in quotes there, these people, and their job is to provide them with the basic necessities of life, as long as they can, and so they can try to convert them to Christianity. Essentially, it's going to become a low end. It's going to become slavery over time, and they're also, remember, supposed to teach them Christianity, although that doesn't get done very much as a whole. Now, the encomienda system provided labor and then also gave them tribute in form of that. And now the system is very similar to what the Aztecs actually put forward, but now and you're going to see the encomienda system isn't slavery because they are providing enough for them. They're given clothing and the basic warfare. The Spanish didn't want slaves. That's going to change over time. Slavery is about 10% or so of what we saw. The resistance that takes place is armed rebellion. It's going to work slowly. You're going to see a lot of it in Spain. It was actually, 1780 saw a 60,000 person revolt in Peru in the name of the Inca. You're going to see in 1615, you're going to see they're trying to write letters to the king. I mean, it's not good. And so they're going to try to work slowly. The men are fleeing. It's not going to work well for the Spanish over time. And so therefore, the encomienda system is going to be slowly replaced by debt peonage. And what that means is you're going to get people from the New World, and they're going to repay their loans, and that's how they're going to do it, and then they have their freedom. Let's move to Peru. I'm sorry, not to Peru. Peru is the same things that's New Spain the whole time. Let's go to Brazil. Very different. Slavery, slavery, slavery for sugar, sugar, sugar. In Conyenbo is the center of life. It's basically a sugar mill. It comes from the English word for engine. It represents the mill, the land, the labor, all the buildings, animals, all, machines, technical skills for sugar. And for sugar to be profitable, you need cheap labor. They get that through slavery. The Portuguese are a little less hands-on. If you think about all the viceroys for the Spanish system, basically the Spanish system is going to, or I'm sorry, the Portuguese system is going to protect farmers. And the Portuguese just give us the money and we're going to protect you. That's what we're going to do. The slaves, this is the brutalest part of the New World besides smallpox, which that's a pretty big thing I just set aside. But the slaves are working in tropical heat with poor nutrition, and you're looking at 5 to 10% of the slaves are dying annually. When they were buying slaves, and which we'll look more at the slave trade in our next chapter, but when you're buying slaves in Brazil, if the slave would last 5 to 6 years, the slave owner would double their money. So in other words, they wanted them as long as possible. So there was no economic reason to really change this system. It was estimated that 1 ton of sugar cost 1 human life. It just wasn't good. So in Portugal, in the Portuguese Brazil, slavery was a way of life. Something you should have caught on here this whole time. Nothing is really great for the natives. Nothing is great for the Africans. Everything is going to the Europeans. So the last slide here, are 2 slides left. Let's talk about up in Native America, furs, what we're looking at. Explorers are going, they're starting with fishing, but then they're making trades with local people, and they're looking to make a huge supply chain. They get the furs back to Europe. Indigenous people would trap them. They'd trade with the Europeans for blankets, pots, guns, alcohol, and send them back. Now, because the beaver population is declining so quickly because of its demand for its fur, people had to move constantly, which is going to cause wars between the Iroquois and the Hurons, for instance, 2 native troops that are native groups that are trying to make money with the Europeans. The Iroquois are aligned with the Dutch, and the Hurons are aligned with the French. And over time, you're going to see, you're playing on divisions again. Early colonies, up here in North America, it's very different than what we saw in the South. South, it's a bloodbath, and people dying of smallpox all over the place. In the North, they're more working together. You're more working together. Colonists are going to start taking over land a little bit south, especially in Virginia. They are going to start looking at the hunting lands of the indigenous. They're turning into farming. Remember, they thought that was making it better. And now they have corn, game, and maize. And now, as a whole, in North America, indentured labor is basically, hey, you're going to do this for a certain amount of time, 4 to 7 years typically, and then you'll be free. So people coming over again. Last slide is just looking at Christianity and the culture here. There's Spanish missionaries throughout in New Spain. In Mexico and Peru, the natives are going to keep their own, and you will see some mixing as well. The Virgin of Guadalupe becomes a national symbol of Mexico. The story goes that the Virgin Mary appeared before Juan Diego in Mexico City in 1531 and starts building, it's a local shrine in the area, and eventually become a national shrine, and the shrine is where miracles happened. Because she was a darker skin tone, she appealed to many Mexicans. The Virgin of Guadalupe, is like the Virgin Mary, appeared to Juan Domingo in 1531. Now, this different ruling style here where the French and the British are definitely less hands-on than the Spanish especially. They're not going to do as many conversions in the South. They're not going to do as many conversions in the South. Or I'm sorry, in the North than they do in the South. So Catholicism is big time going to spread throughout the New World.